Welcome back to Maths with Mrs. J. We've been starting to talk about how to solve linear equations where there are multiple things to undo. We need to take multiple steps. Now, a little interim step between using all that box business that I was doing in the previous videos and not using it at all might be just to use down the side of your page just a little bit of note taking. So for example, for this one here, I write down just a few notes as to what's happened to the x. Well, first, it's been multiplied by 2. Then 4's been taken away. Then that whole thing's been divided by 3. And finally, 1 has been added. So that's just a little mental reminder as to what has happened to the x. And now we need to remember that if we want to find x, we've got to go back in the opposite direction. We have to do the opposite thing in the opposite order. The last layer that was on was this +1. So that's going to be the first layer that we need to remove. How do we undo adding 1? By subtracting 1. All right, next layer that we need to undo is this dividing by 3. We undo dividing by 3 by multiplying by 3. So 2x minus 4 is 12. Next layer we need to undo is this subtracting 4. We undo subtracting 4 by adding 4. And last thing that we need to undo to find our x is to get rid of the multiplication by 2. We get rid of that by dividing by 2. We end up with x is 8. Now, because quite a few steps were done here, let's actually show some working when we do our check step. For your check step, if you've only got x on one side of the equation, just work out what that is and check that it works out the same as that. So we're going to plug in or substitute in x equals 8. So 2 times 8 minus 4 over 3 plus 1. What does that equal? Well, 2 times 8 is 16 minus our 4 on 3. 16 minus 4 is 12. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And 4 plus 1, yes, is our right-hand side, so we're all good there. All right, let's try the next one. Now, again, we can just do a few little notes down the side of the page so that we know what's happened to the x and in what order, so that we know to do the opposite thing in the opposite order to solve it. The first thing that's happened here is that 1 has been taken away. Then that's been divided by 4. Then 2 has been added, and then the whole thing has been multiplied by 3. So we're going to do the opposite thing in the opposite order. The first thing we've got to undo is this multiplication by 3. We're going to undo that by dividing by 3. So x minus 1 on 4 plus 2 is 4. All right, so that's all good. We've undone that step successfully. Now we've got to undo adding 2. How do we undo adding 2? By subtracting 2. So x minus 1 on 4 is 4 minus 2. So x minus 1 on 4 is 2. So now that's been successfully undone. Now we've got to undo this dividing by 4. The opposite of dividing by 4 is multiplying by 4. So we're going to do that to both sides. And we get x minus 1 is 8. And finally, we've only got one more thing to undo. We undo subtracting 1 by adding 1. So x equals 9. And again, let's actually do some setting out to check that this is in fact correct. So if x is 9, so let's work out 3 times now. We've got 9 minus 1 on 4 plus 2. Well, 3 times, what's 9 minus 1? That's 8. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. And yes, it does equal our right-hand side, so we're all good there. Okay. Now, We're going to go on and do a few more on our next page. So let me just go to that next page and have a look at those ones. Okie dokie. Now, I have deliberately picked this one because a lot of people have trouble with ones like this. The reason why a lot of people have trouble with ones like this is because it's written in an order that's different from normal. Like quite often we're used to having the X term first and then the constant term, but also we've got a negative. Now, what you need to know here is that when you have terms in an expression, whatever sign is immediately to the left of the term comes with it as a package deal. And if there's no sign written, then we assume it's a positive. So this 5 is really a plus 5, and this minus 3x is like a negative 3x. This is exactly the same as writing negative 3x plus 5. Now, most students find this way easier to work with than that, because a lot of people get really caught up with the negative 3x business and they think they've got to add 3 to both sides or something like that. So reorder if you need to. That's perfectly okay to do that. So now let's do our little check. So what's happened to the x? Well, it's been multiplied by negative 3. Then what's happened? 5's been added. So there's really only 2 steps here. So first step is we're going to get rid of this adding 5 by taking 5 away. Then we're going to get rid of multiplying by negative 3 by dividing by negative 3. And remember that a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Now, to do our check here, I would go right back to the very original equation just to be sure that we haven't messed up somewhere along the line. So let's check. 5 minus 3 times 4. Okay, well that's 5 minus 12, which is negative 7. Yay, that is our right-hand side and we're all good. All right. Last one for this video. Quite a few things have happened to the x here. That's okay. Don't freak out if it looks complicated. You've just got to be systematic about it. You're going to do the opposite thing in the opposite order. So what's happened first? It's been multiplied by 3. Then it's been divided by 5. Then 1's been taken away. Then that's been multiplied by 2. And then 3's been added. Now we've got a lot of things to undo here, but if we just keep a level head and do it step by step, we'll be fine. So the first thing we've got to undo is this plus 3. So we're going to get 2. 3x on 5 minus 1 is 7 minus 3. So this equals 4. All right, so that part's undone successfully. Next thing, we've got to undo this multiplication by 2. We undo multiplying by 2 by dividing by 2. All right, next thing we've got to undo is this minus 1. So 3x on 5 equals 3. Now, these 2 steps here could be thought of as 2 steps or 1 step. I'm going to do it as 2 steps. You can do it as 1 step if you remember about your fractions, but let's just do one thing at a time. We're undoing dividing by 5 by multiplying by 5. Now we're going to undo the multiplication by 3. And we've just got enough room to write our answer. We get x is 5. Let's check. Let's do our little check. Okay, 2 times. So we got x is 5. So 3 times 5 on 5 minus 1. Well, we're lucky here in that the 5's cancel. So what we've really got here is 2 times 3 minus 1, which is 2 plus 3. 4 plus 3 is 7, and we're all good.